Welcome to the What Does Science Say channel. You know, we've all had them. That familiar, unwelcome throbbing in our head. But what if I told you the pain itself isn't the real story? Today, we're going to decode what's truly happening inside your head during a headache, and, well, it's probably way more complex than you think. And just to give you some perspective, this is not some small, niche problem. We're talking about over 1 billion people worldwide who suffer from migraines. 1 billion. That makes it one of the most common and most disabling neurological conditions on the entire planet. It's a staggering scale for something that's so often just brushed aside. So that brings us to the big question for today, right? We use the word headache for everything, but what really separates a minor annoyance from a full-blown, debilitating migraine? What's the actual difference? Let's find out. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to split all headaches into 2 major categories. Then we'll put the most common types side by side in a kind of headache lineup. After that, we'll do a deep dive into the 4 distinct phases of a migraine, explore the wild stuff happening in the brain, and wrap it all up by looking at how we can actually manage and prevent them. All right, first things first, we have to get this one fundamental rule straight. Not all headaches are created equal. In fact, you can think of them as living in 2 completely different worlds. So, on one side, you've got primary headaches. This is what most of us are dealing with, like 98% of the time. In this case, the headache is the main problem. Migraines, tension headaches, cluster headaches, they all fall into this category. But then there are secondary headaches. These are much rarer, but they're super important to know about because here, the pain is just a symptom. It's a red flag for something else going on, like an infection, a tumor, or even a bleed in the brain. So how can you tell if a headache might be one of these dangerous secondary types? Well, doctors use this really handy little tool called the Snoops mnemonic. S is for systemic symptoms, like a fever. N stands for neurological signs, think weakness or confusion. O is for onset. Did it come on suddenly, like a thunderclap? The next O is for other pre-existing conditions. And P stands for pattern change. Is this headache way different from your usual ones? Any of these are a major signal that you should get checked out right away. Okay, now that we've got this scary stuff out of the way, let's get back to that 98%, the primary headaches. Let's line up the 3 most common types and see how they compare. What's amazing is just how different these really are. You've got the tension headache, the most common one, which feels like a dull, tight band squeezing both sides of your head. Then there's the migraine, which is usually a one-sided, throbbing, pulsating pain that comes with nausea and makes you super sensitive to light and sound. And then you have the cluster headache. It's rare, thank goodness, but the pain is excruciating, explosive, and centered right around one eye. They're so predictable, they're sometimes called alarm clock headaches. So yeah, from that lineup, it's pretty clear a migraine is a whole different beast than just a bad headache. So let's zoom in and really unpack the migraine experience, because it's not just one event, it's a whole neurological journey. You see, a migraine attack can actually have up to 4 phases. It can start hours, sometimes even days, before the pain hits. That's the prodrome phase, with weird clues like yawning a lot or getting strange food cravings. Then, for about a quarter of people, the aura phase hits, with visual stuff like flashing lights or blind spots. Phase 3 is the one everyone knows, the headache itself, which can last for up to 3 agonizing days. But it's not over yet. The final phase, the postdrome, feels like a migraine hangover, leaving you totally wiped out and foggy. The main takeaway here, the pain is just one part of this much bigger story. So what on earth is going on inside the brain to cause this whole multi-day saga? To really get it, we've got to look at the biology. But before we dive into the science, you have to appreciate the human cost. This quote just says it all perfectly. It's not only about the physical pain, it's about the lost time. Migraine is a time robber. It steals people away from their jobs, from their families, from their lives. Scientists think that the first domino to fall in a migraine attack is this thing called cortical spreading depression. Now that sounds intense, and it is. It's basically a slow-moving wave of electrical hyperactivity that sweeps across the surface of your brain. This wave is what's thought to cause the weird visual stuff in an aura and then trigger the whole chain reaction that leads to the headache. So that electrical wave sets off a cascade, starting with a trigeminal nerve. Think of it as the main superhighway for pain signals in your head. When it gets activated, it releases this cocktail of chemicals, and there's one major bad guy in the mix, a molecule called CGRP. You can think of CGRP as the key pain messenger. It tells the blood vessels in your brain to swell up and get inflamed, and that's what creates the signature, awful, throbbing pain of a migraine. So knowing the science, knowing that CGRP is a major target, has totally changed the game for how we can fight back against headaches and migraines. So how do we use that knowledge to go from just relief to actual prevention? Well, there are two main strategies. The first is acute treatment. This is for right now. You take these medicines during an attack to shut it down. Think of your classic pain relievers or prescription drugs called triptans. The second approach is preventive. These are things you take regularly to make the attacks happen less often and be less severe. And this is where those game-changing CGRP-inhibiting drugs come in, along with other options like beta blockers or even Botox. But hey, medicine isn't the whole story. A massive part of managing migraines is figuring out your own personal triggers. A migraine brain is a really sensitive brain. It just doesn't like change. The biggest culprits are often stress and a messed up sleep schedule. But hormonal shifts, certain foods, and even changes in the weather can be enough to kick off an attack. So, what can you actually do? Here are the biggest takeaways. First, keep a headache diary to spot your patterns and triggers. Make a consistent sleep schedule your religion. Stay hydrated and don't skip meals. Find a way to manage stress that works for you, whether it's hitting the gym or meditating. And this last one is so important. When you feel an attack coming on, treat it early. Don't wait for the pain to get bad, because the medicine works so much better at the very beginning. And that kind of leaves us with a final, really hopeful thought. With these new treatments that can literally block CGRP, the messenger of migraine pain itself, we're not just masking symptoms anymore. We're targeting the core biology of the disease. So it makes you wonder, are we finally stepping into a new era of freedom for people who suffer from headaches? Thank you for being with us until the end of this video. Please be sure to subscribe to the What Does Science Say channel and give us energy with your likes and comments. Share your comments with us and send the video to your loved ones so that others can also use it.